Hello and welcome back to World of Tanks Bootcamp with Zethika. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at a replay with the German Tier 7 tank destroyer, the Jagdpanzer. Now this is not the German tank destroyer line that's going to go up to the Waffle Tractor U100, but rather the Jagdpanzer U100. Now, this was one of my first Tier 7 tank destroyers, or rather one of my first Tier 7 tanks to begin with. So I have a bit of a soft spot for it. This beautiful sloping that you're seeing right here in the front means that even though it doesn't have that big of a actual armor thickness, it's got quite a big of an effective armor thickness, meaning that it can bounce a lot of shots that it normally shouldn't. But however, in this replay we're going up against Tier 9s, meaning that even though we have quite good sloping, it's probably not going to be sufficient against them, since they are quite capable of penetrating anything we send against them, right? Okay, so in this kind of map I usually like to go into this here area, supporting both the middle and the western flank. So my plan at this point is to head that way. However, I see this IS-3. I can't stand one-to-one against an IS-3, so I decide I go over here, even though I hate this area, since it can get shot at from any of the artillery and is usually not that effective. However, it can be used to some effect to prevent the enemy from getting up to the hill here and prevent the enemy from rushing over behind that hill, since I can shoot over here. So I'll move up here. I'll move up. And there's a Panther 88. This is probably not going to go in, and it certainly isn't. However, I did put a shot into him, and he hopefully thought better of going that way. Now, you shouldn't really normally do what I'm going to be doing here, which is, in a moment I'm going to be poking my head up over here. This is a bit of a risk, but it seems like there's a lot of enemy tanks over in this here area, and we haven't spotted anything over here yet, meaning I need to know what's going to be happening up over here. Now, I get shot once by an MX-5120, meaning that I am effectively useless at this point in this here area. I can't do anything, and I decide to repair my gun, and I see this the IS-3 has lost 1,000 hit points. If I can surprise him, that means I can probably kill him without taking damage, since I'll be able to kill him, get a shot into the side. And since I'm useless at this here area, I'm going to be moving across here, even though I'm probably going to take a shot in the ass from the Panther 88, and he took out my engine. Since I already repaired my gun, I can't do anything against it. That's a bit bad. However, this Panther is now in a world of hurt, since I'm going to be shooting at him from the optimal position for me. With 8 degrees of gun depression, this gun allows the armor to be fully effective. And I think, I'm not entirely certain, but I think it's going to get up towards 150 and above armor in the front here at 8 degrees of gun depression, right? But of course that doesn't matter at all if I'm against artillery and he gets a shot in. That's a bit sad. That's a bit unfortunate for me, since he only has about 30% chance of penetrating me, but still. And I bait a shot there, but it doesn't go so well for him this time. Now, we can see that the Tiger II and the T-54 are pushing quite quite aggressively into this area. Now, I need to support them, but this Chiri is quite dangerous, really, since they are using an autoloader. But since he's behind the rock, I can't do anything against it. So I decide I'm going to go after this T-54, meaning that I'm trying to penetrate a tank that has vastly superior armor to anything I can really penetrate from the front. So I really need side shots, like this one. Oh, and he's got no HP, and looks like it went for the turret, which was a bit unlucky, but that's alright. And now it looks like he's going to... Oh, I thought he was showing me his side, but he wasn't. Like a doofus. He showed me... I thought he was going to show me his front and try and side scrape me. In that case, I wouldn't have really have been able to do much without, of course, without APCR or heat ammo. In this case, APCR. So, in this situation is actually really beneficial for me and this T-54. If the T-54 was alone, he might have gotten overwhelmed. Those two tanks, even though they're tier 7, if they work together, might have been able to get up and at least put a lot of hurt into them. But because, even though this is such a little engagement, we're still quite capable of flanking them. Now, as I said before, if you can, you should always flank. These two tanks has no good positions to be in, right? Because if they go for the T-54, I can shoot them. If they go for me, the T-54 can shoot them. And so, they've already lost. Right? Now, the AMX 5120 that shot at me, unless there was more than one, there wasn't, he's now down there. Does that mean he's been down there the whole time? If so, that's probably a good reason why we won. So as you can see, due to my assistance in this area here, we successfully killed all of the tanks in this area, and there wasn't any tanks who've gone over to the eastern flank. So even if I had been there, I wouldn't have really aided them in any way. This is something you need to consider, right? You need to always consider where can you pull your weight the best, right? And with that notion in mind, let's go and take a quick look at the post-game stats. Now, as before, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the post-game stats themselves. This was a first-class mastery badge. I earned 46,575 gross credits and 3,326 experience, and with a 2x victory it was. I did the second most damage on my team with the ISU 152 and the enemy team doing a significantly larger amount. I feel bad for the poor fellow, he obviously did well. And I earned the most experience, of course, and we can see here that I earned 25,000 credits, roughly, with everything subtracted. Now, as I was saying, you need to be able to pull your weight. This is really the baseline for any decent World of Tanks player. If you get into a game where you're tier 7 against tier 9s in a tank that depends, like the IS-6, mostly on its sloping for its armor, meaning that it doesn't really have that good armor to begin with, only in certain situations, really. So most of the enemy tier 9 tanks are going to be able to penetrate you in without any worry whatsoever. Now, as I said, I wasn't going to be able to win against the IS-3. And that was a tier 8 heavy tank with 1500 health, and he would have simply 3-shotted me and I would have been out of the game instantly. So I decided to go up to the less advantageous position in the middle of the map, where I normally feel I can't do anything really. But that was really the best position for me to go to at the point. So what I tried to do there was gauge how many tanks are behind the hill. I tried to move up over the hill, even though it was a bit stupid, trying to gauge how much return fire I got, since at that point I was spotted. Most likely I was spotted. So they would have been aiming there since they saw me moving upwards, right? But there was only one tank shooting against me, and I had seen a lot of tanks over on the western flank, meaning I needed to help over there. Even though I was only in a tier 7, I should be able to help them out a lot. And so I saw that this IS-3 had low health, right? If I got a surprise in on him, I would probably have been able to kill him, with him maybe getting one shot in, maybe none, right? So I felt that was sufficient, and of course he was killed before I even got over there. But I was able to get into a very advantageous position, where even if that Panther had been a tier 9, he would have been in such a disadvantage, because at that point I was able to completely determine the speed of the engagement. This is critical. You need to be in a position where you can decide when you're going to be able to take damage. This is also why side scraping is such a useful tool, because you decide when you are capable of taking damage, meaning you can time it with your own reload, right? You don't time it against their reload. Never ever let them dictate the speed of the engagement. That Panther, he had a fast firing gun, right? And he was able to penetrate me once. Even though that was a bit unlucky for me, it's not outside the realm of possibilities. I think it's about a 30% chance of him penetrating me from that angle, since I got around 170 armor from that angle, I think, in that kind of situation. However, what that meant was that I was capable of completely negating his advantageous position on my friends up in the town, right? So when I had killed him and I went out after the T-54, again, going after the weakened targets, I've noticed quite a few times where people are not willing to go after, if they have a big firing gun, for example the derp gun on the Waffle Tractor E100 or something, they're not willing to take the kills. What you need to remember is that every tank is always capable of doing its maximum amount of damage. So even if it's at 1 health, it does exactly as much damage as if it was on 100%. You need, if none of your friends are going to take the kill, you need to take the kill, because you need to pull their gun out of the battle while keeping your gun and your friends' guns in the battle. Effectively, you're 15 against 15, right? Meaning that you can't effectively, realistically, in most cases, you're not going to be able to do the damage for 15 tanks. You need to keep your friends in the battle. You need to go into positions where you can win, where you know you can win, where you know you can take out the enemy. This is also why, if I had been alone, if I had seen that no one had gone to the western flank, right, I would not have gone over there to defend it myself either. I was in a low tire tank. If I had been in a Tiger II, a E75, a carry tank, a tank that was made for battling against many enemies at once, I might have considered going over there, but I wasn't. So in those kind of situations, what you want to do is try and push as quickly as possible your friends through the eastern flank, right? You want to, this is where you get into those kind of clockwork matches, right? Where you take each other's bases. But what you can do in that kind of situation is then yourself go back to the base and hopefully be able to decap them enough that your team wins. Or get your friends to go back to the base and decap them enough that your team wins. You will never benefit from going one against 15 or 10 or 5 tanks. That's not a good idea. All that's going to accomplish is them killing you without you killing any of them, because they can simply overwhelm you. Meaning that you're out of the battle, you can't attribute and you can't contribute anything at that point. And they've removed a gun from the enemy team, from your team, right? So they're already at that point in an advantage if you go one against many. You need to consider your teammates' position as well. You need to keep them alive, and you need to use them to the best of your ability to kill the enemies. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this little quick replay, and I hope I'll see you back for more at some point. And please remember to vote, comment and subscribe. It sure does help. And have a good evening.